When Assassin's Creed Unity was released, it almost ruined Ubisoft because it was ridiculed with a lot of technical issues at launch. This led to the unfortunate situation of Assassin's Creed Syndicate having pretty low sale numbers. In fact, it was one of Ubisoft's lowest selling Assassin's Creed games. I believe Rogue was the only game under it. Regardless of what you think about Syndicate, it definitely was not a game that was worth having one of the lowest sale numbers. Because of this, Ubisoft took a year off to think about the future of the series. Fast forward 2 years, a new Assassin's Creed title was born, and that was Assassin's Creed Origins. This game was the complete opposite of what Assassin's Creed was focused on. RPG elements were introduced, an enormous open world, dialogue choices and so on. And because of these new changes to the franchise, Assassin's Creed Origins sold twice as many copies as Syndicate in the first 2 weeks. So in a way, you could make the argument that Origins saved the franchise, but that's not the main focus on this video. 6 months ago, I uploaded my first ever video to this channel, and that was an Assassin's Creed Origins video. However, the issue with that video is that it was only 8 minutes long, and for whatever reason, I didn't talk about everything I wanted to say. So fast forward to now, I feel as if it's only right to talk about Assassin's Creed Origins in full detail. Oh, and before I get into it, I gotta say thank you for all the support recently. I never thought I'd be at 26,000 subscribers in literally 6 months. I did not even expect to hit 1,000, let alone 26,000. So yeah, I just had to mention that. Anyway, without further ado, let's just get right into the video. Wow! Monkey King is now a legendary hero, but that's not all. Raid Shadow Legends is generously giving him absolutely free for a limited time. Today's video is sponsored by none other than Raid Shadow Legends. This free-to-play fantasy RPG offers a rich storyline and online PvP, allowing you to navigate a visually stunning fantasy realm with over 800 champions spanning 15 playable factions. Rally orcs, knights, elves, and a diverse array of fantasy creatures to overcome any challenge in your path. Raid Shadow Legends is available on Android, iOS and PC, and you can download it now for free using my link or scan the QR code on screen to receive amazing heroes. What's great is that this is just the initial bonus and there's so much more to come. Users can receive a legendary champion along with 2 epic champions and a rare hero for free by using the promo code Monkey King. Sun Wukong is an exceptionally powerful legendary hero with a very unique skill set that allows him to block and steal all buffs. His versatility makes him an asset to any team, and it's a rare treat for Raid to offer such a legendary hero at no cost. Do remember to use the code Monkey King within the first 72 hours of registering to receive this legendary champion at no cost. To redeem Raid Shadow Legends promo codes, tap on the tab on the left hand side of the screen when in Bastion, and then select the promo codes option. Once in the promo codes window, type in your Raid Shadow Legends promo code and then hit confirm. You'll receive confirmation if your entry was successful, and then you can claim your rewards from your inbox in the Bastion. Promo codes are limited to 1 user per person, and you must wait 24 hours after entering a promo code before entering another. Begin your raid adventure on a powerful note by kickstarting the game with a legendary champion and 2 epic champions, along with a rare hero. Simply click the link in the description to claim Lightsworn, an epic champion from the Sacred Order. Lightsworn's abilities include keeping your team alive with a defense buff and the ability to revive on death. As an added bonus, once you reach level 15, you'll also unlock Juliana, another epic champion known for taking down bosses in the Sacred Order. So what are you waiting for? Download Raid Shadow Legends now using the link in the description or scan the QR code on screen. Thank you once again to Raid Shadow Legends for sponsoring this video. The open world in Assassin's Creed Origins is a clear departure from the monotonous settings that came before it. You have a breathtaking rendition of ancient Egypt right at your fingertips, ready to be explored from top to bottom. The world fits all the requirements for a great video game portrayal of a historical period. It's a giant and stunning assortment of landscapes that cover well-known historical sites, while also introducing you to lesser-known ones. There's of course historical landmarks like the Great Pyramid of Giza, where you can take in the breathtaking view at sunset, or perhaps if you wanted, you can explore the swampy crocodile-filled wetlands of Crocodile.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
Or perhaps if you wanted, you can explore the swampy crocodile-filled wetlands of Crocodilopolis. But the pyramids are just a small part of the game's world. The map is just enormous, including big cities, many small towns, and stretches of desert and wilderness. The amount of just great places in general to visit in Assassin's Creed Origins is far from lacking. One of my favourite things that was introduced in the world of Origins is the dynamic day-night cycle that operates as it should in real life. You'd often encounter moments like freak sandstorms that would actually obscure your vision, which I love because it kind of creates a more high level of immersion. And immersion to me is one of the most important things that a world has to achieve. The hallucinations are a great example of being fully immersed in the game. It's often said that seeing things that aren't there is a common experience when walking through a desert. You'll encounter these hallucinations, and it's not just a simple addition. These hallucinations have a deeper meaning to them, and just to name a few favourite ones of mine, there's an instance where it would randomly start raining, but instead of raindrops, it would be scarabs and insects falling from the sky. Another would consist of seeing ghosts, or people that aren't actually there. You can see a body on the floor that resembles Bayek that would disappear, enemies fighting you that would disappear, and even a strange ghostly figure just walking alongside Bayek. That's just naming a few of the many hallucinations you'll experience when walking through the desert in Origins. The developers did such a good job with this edition, and the thought process was clearly there for them to implement these. You'll find some really cool places when you travel the world. There are temples hidden all over the place, and they've got surprises you won't see on your map. Most of the time, you'll go to army camps and small villages, but every now and then, you can stumble upon something special. Like this one time I found a temple in the middle of the night. I had to mess with some mirrors and follow a path that was lit by the moonlight. It was just a real mystery. There was no animals to fight or bad guys, just huge walls rising out of the desert that would challenge me to solve a puzzle. In most places, they'll give you things to do like finding treasure, defeating a captain, or perhaps collecting puzzle pieces. Sometimes it can feel like you're just ticking off tasks on a list, but the temples are different. They have a spooky and mysterious atmosphere, making it feel like you're truly discovering ancient ruins lost to the ages. These temples also reveal small parts of a story that connect to the bigger narrative, and not just what's happening in ancient Egypt. It's kind of like getting a sneak peek at the sci-fi technology that drives Assassin's Creed. Another thing that really makes me love Origins world the most out of the 13 mainland games is the world is not limited to what's on the surface. The sense of discovery actually extends beneath the river surfaces that would divide landscapes. A simple yet effective feature such as underwater exploration was done in this game that was unlike anything Assassin's Creed had offered before. It was just a nice refreshing change of pace. One moment you're swimming to get from A to B, and the next you're fighting a crocodile whilst trying to get some sunken treasure. I did like the fact that traversal was not limited in this game. You don't have to walk across the entire massive map of ancient Egypt, as there would be various modes of transportation available. Boats, chariots, horses and camels that are scattered throughout Egypt help you move through the terrain more quickly. You can spend countless hours exploring and still only scratch the surface of what the game actually has to offer. It's the kind of game where you can get lost in the world and forget about the main story entirely. In fact, that's exactly what I did quite recently, but to be honest, I think I just do that with any game in general. Take Cyberpunk for example. I've been replaying that game quite recently, and so far I'm about 30 hours in, and I've done around only 10 hours of the main story. These are the types of games that I love. I don't care about all this split community bullshit where one part of the Assassin's Creed fanbase adores the older games, whilst the other part adores the more newer titles. I for one played every Assassin's Creed game at launch, and yet here I am talking about Assassin's Creed Origins like it's one of my favourite games of all time. Anyway, let's get back on track. I did notice that there was kind of a more increased fluidity of free running in this game. You no longer have to struggle to climb up noticeable differently coloured gaps in walls. Instead, about 90% of the walls and surfaces can be climbed, even if they don't seem like it at first glance. This makes the parkour experience much smoother and more fluid. Sure, it's not as elegant in its animation as Unity, but it still does a great job regardless. Now let's talk a little more about the cities of Assassin's Creed Origins. These are not just locations that are copied and pasted. Every single city in Assassin's Creed Origins is meticulously crafted with painstaking detail, and you can tell that these cities portray what they're going for. Take the town of Sais for example. You can tell the moment you step foot into this town, it's not as glamorous and in your face as a city like Cyrene would be. It's less developed, less rich, and there's a clear showing of poverty in this city. Now if you go back to Cyrene, it's so incredibly detailed. Every bit of architecture, building, statue all feel individually created. You got a marketplace in one area of the city to a massive Roman Colosseum in another just sitting there. So yeah, it's clear that ancient Egypt in this game is depicted as no joke. After all, it is my favourite setting out of the entire franchise, and I doubt any future Assassin's Creed title could change that, but who knows, maybe Assassin's Creed codename Red could. The story of Assassin's Creed Origins is one that contains its ups and downs. Like many of us are aware, Assassin's Creed Origins is set in ancient Egypt, with famous historical figures like Cleopatra and Julius Caesar playing key roles in the story. But if we look at history, labelling them as quote-unquote classic does not quite fit. The story of Origins delves into a more recent version of Egyptian civilization, where the pharaohs actually accomplished quite a lot. Egypt has changed over time, blending with different cultures, especially the Greeks and Romans. We step into the role of Bayek, a Magi protector of the Pharaoh, the land and his people. When the Pharaoh visits Bayek's village in Siwa, his son is lured into a dangerous situation by unknown men. Bayek escapes, but sadly his son does not survive. Filled with sorrow, Bayek and his wife Aya learn that these men belong to the secretive order of the Ancients. They swear to avenge their son and discover that this order has members all across the nation, yet trying to dismantle the order made Bayek realize the depth of their grip on Egypt. It was not just a handful of individuals. This organization included numerous influential figures with a single objective, which was to secretly rule and manipulate Egypt. They had the power to orchestrate events, even crowning Ptolemy as pharaoh, further worsening the plight of the Egyptian people. The story kind of mainly focuses on local politics and eliminating order members. Only later does it actually touch upon the creation of the creed. The most enjoyable part of the story revolves around Bayek, his grief over his son's death and his strong connection with his wife Aya, who is a character that I felt like deserves to be fleshed out more. What's quite interesting is that at some point you get to take on the role of Aya, but very briefly, and while her playable segments are quite short, I do appreciate the unique story surrounding her. However, the game doesn't really make Aya feel like a central character, which is quite regrettable. She cannot explore the world freely, lacks the upgrades and abilities, and her weapons remain basic. I do find it quite puzzling that Aya is made playable without the richness of content that Bayek enjoys. This for me personally diminishes the narrative impact, as each encounter with Aya feels like a standalone moment, even though there are several of them, and numerous important events involve her. Her segments are well acted and visually appealing, but in terms of gameplay, they fall very short. Anyway, let's go back to the actual main narrative. To me, the structure of it is solid. It smoothly transitions from a personal revenge tale to a broader narrative, and it's a welcome departure from the typical conflict between assassins and Templars. While the replacement isn't drastically different thematically, it's presented in a refreshing manner. I will say I was massively disappointed with the big reveal of who the main villain was, and that was Flavius. He's a villain that is truly not memorable, and his overall character arc was quite flawed. Pretty much everything about him, from his order to his motivations, makes him, or rather the Order of Ancients as a whole, appear like early versions of Templars, which might leave the fans of the ezio era quite unimpressed by their predictability. Flavius is essentially a less charismatic Cesare, although Cesare had a distinct presence and was actually entertaining to watch. He was also a pampered aristocrat, and his personality and motivations were grounded in that. In contrast, Flavius lacks any meaningful backstory or build-up, making him seem like a privileged and immature individual. I know for a fact I was not the only person questioning as to who the hell this guy is when he was revealed. That's probably my only flaw with the main story of Origins. It makes the whole narrative go from a solid 9 out of 10 to a 7 out of 10, and that's purely because of the villain. But main story aside, there's still a modern day subplot, but now it's more of a choice regarding how deeply you want to dive into it. I guess you can explore computer files to learn about Abstergo's current situation, but it's not obligatory. Having the option though is quite a nice touch. Furthermore, both the modern day and historical parts feature the appearance of the Hidden Blade, which quite expectedly is a signature element of the series. However, neither aspect genuinely enhances the narrative. It seems more like a nod to the standard formula of this is what you would find in an Assassin's Creed game. In fact, I wish they had taken a route that was similar to Assassin's Creed Black Flag, turning the modern day plot into a straightforward video game company, which personally feels like a more innovative approach. Now that I've discussed the narrative and how I feel about it, it's only right to talk about Bayek as a character. Throughout all the Assassin's Creed games, I would like to think that there's not many great protagonists. Altair was the original character, but in my opinion, he was flawed in Assassin's Creed 1. Connor was a character that lacked a personality in terms of the main story. Of course, I'm not referring to the homestead missions for this instance. Arno Dorian is flawed, Jacob and Evie are flawed. Ezio and Edward Kenway are probably the only two protagonists that I feel are on a near similar level to Bayek. He's a Magi in Egypt, and he takes his role pretty seriously. In the game, it's clear from the start that he views the Magi's duty as assisting the people of Siwa, and eventually all of Egypt in any way possible. This includes objectives like locating lost scrolls and taking on big groups of bandits to help anyone who seeks his aid. In Origins, the side quests blend seamlessly into the main story, and it does make sense for Bayek to engage with them. Despite his goals for vengeance, he remains committed to his Magi role, offering aid to Egyptians and Greeks in need, whether it's solving a murder or perhaps rescuing kidnapped children. Speaking of kidnapped children, the most standout part of Bayek in this game was during one of the Crocodile's quests where you accompany a young girl named Shadia to her home, and I must say, I was deeply impressed. The animation and Bayek's performance were simply outstanding. You could sense his lighter side, enjoying a bit of respite in his challenging life. When he suspects Shadia is in danger, the urgency feels so real, which was kind of a rare sensation in games. I can't recall ever being so emotionally invested in a game's narrative at that point. I was genuinely pissed off and wanted to take down those soldiers. I stormed into their camp, which is something I wouldn't usually do in the franchise. I would often take a stealthier approach, but not in this case. And then when we saw what happened to Shadia, it almost brought a tear to my eye. Abu Bakr Salim's voice acting was so incredibly touching, and the storytelling from Ubisoft for this specific questline was exceptional. So kudos to Ubisoft for that. If anything, that side quest highlights the power of video games as a storytelling medium. Another instance I can think of is during a side quest where Bayek encounters a woman near a cliff and he grows worried about her. He approaches her to understand her situation and learns that the woman, named Tua, is contemplating ending her own life due to the loss of her beloved husband. There's no fight scenes or assassinations involved, it's simply Bayek offering assistance to someone in need. He may not be a therapist, but Bayek is trying his best to be both truthful and compassionate. In the end, Bayek successfully convinces the woman not to go through with her plan on the cliff. This moment is a stark contrast to the intense anger Bayek displays when pursuing the Order throughout the main story. However, Bayek's unapologetic kindness is a rarity, not just in media but possibly in real life as well. It's pretty uncommon to encounter male protagonists who exhibit genuine compassion without hidden layers of toughness. You see, in fiction, this often mirrors societal expectations of how a man should be, suggesting that being genuinely kind might be seen as a sign of vulnerability. As a result, many male characters in video games are portrayed as rugged on the outside, but conceal a softer side, such as Geralt of Rivia, Joel Miller and some others. This trope isn't inherently negative, but Bayek breaks free from this pattern, and Assassin's Creed Origins fully emphasizes that kindness is a strength and it does not need to be concealed. Now, moving on from those two prime examples, Bayek's overall drive is very determined, and even Cleopatra's offer to join her cause isn't as enticing as the title of Magi of Egypt, which allows him to help his fellow citizens. Bayek as a protagonist stands out due to his passion, his deep love for his wife Aya, and his profound grief over his son's death. His emotions are vivid and authentic, brought to life through outstanding animation and Abu Bakr Salim's superb voice acting. His charisma sets him apart from other games' characters, and he's not a blank slate, but instead, he's a character with a very reassuring personality. The iconic hidden blade, which is a central theme to Assassin's Creed, is introduced in this game in a very unique way, showing how the ritual surrounding it resulted from a mistake made by Bayek. His willingness to sacrifice a finger for the blade reflects his dedication and honor, and what makes Bayek truly powerful is that while he achieves his goals, it's often a bittersweet victory. He wanted his son's soul to find peace and to rebuild his relationship with Aya. However, as their revenge concludes, Aya realizes that they can never return to their old lives in Siwa. She's determined to continue the fight against the Order, and Bayek knows their love has no place in this future. They basically join forces to establish the Brotherhood, and this ending feels like an earned and inevitable conclusion. So yeah, Bayek is a brilliantly crafted character, fitting so perfectly into the game's world, story and gameplay. Ubisoft definitely struck gold with its design, and it's one of the rare cases where they managed to get something right. Memory corridors are something that definitely deserves to be talked about in this game. If you're not aware as to what a memory corridor is in Assassin's Creed, well, after an assassin achieved a goal, the person reliving the memory would usually step into the memory corridor and observe a conversation between the assassin and the target that they had just killed. This conversation would provide a better understanding of the target's reasonings or deeds. We've seen this being done since the very beginning of the series, but it's the memory corridors in Assassin's Creed Origins that truly stand out for me. The amount of effort put into these memory corridors is quite evident, and it's a shame that no other Assassin's Creed game comes close to replicating these memory corridors. Actually, maybe Valhalla was the closest. Take the start of Assassin's Creed Origins for example. The opening cinematic sees Bayek confront his first target being Rujek, also known as the Heron. The memory corridor in this scene is incredibly well executed and establishes the foundation for the entire story. The level of animation, the voice acting, the storytelling is all presented in this sequence as truly outstanding. It effectively demonstrates the duality of Bayek's character, where he can be both scary and intimidating, and then on the other side turn into a compassionate and dedicated Magi.
Sleep. I never sleep. I just wait in the shadows, and I will kill you all. Everyone who sniffed the air that day in Siwa!
Daddy, chill.
Another perfect example of how great these memory corridors are is Medinamun's assassination. Throughout the story of Origins, Medinamun comes across as an extremely unsettling character. To begin with, he manipulates Bayek by using visions of his deceased son, setting off a chain of events that ultimately led to his death. Following that, he takes on the appearance of Kemu's lifeless body, which is rather unsettling. He then approaches the already startled Bayek in an eerie crawling manner, taunting and shaming him in the process. Bayek's response is equally disturbing as he brutally strikes his head with a stone. This scene is beyond anything one might consider as sane. It's another example of how Bayek can go from helping out people with a kind heart and then switching to his murder and scary mode.
You could not even save your own son. You are no one. Bayek of nothing. Father to nobody!
And here is your nobody!
Daddy, chill.
Yet another example I can give is not even during the main story, but rather a side mission, and that was the Son of Ra's memory corridor. I was actually kind of surprised that this character even had a memory corridor from his death. I guess it could be possible that he was cut from the main story and then they left it in. Nonetheless, it's still truly incredible. Now the reason I've included this one as a focus point is because of the Son of Ra's ambitions and goals. He views himself as a god, believing that he can take lives without remorse. He claims that you could pile 1,000 corpses in front of him and it would not even faze him. He even considers himself above the Magi, the Phalakatai, the Order and everything else. He's aware of Bayek's history and the loss of his family. He even attempts to compare it to his own losses in an effort to justify his actions. This entire memory corridor was very unsettling. The fact that a side character named the Son of Ra knew everything about Bayek was a bit odd. One of the more unusual things he says during this memory corridor comes near the end, where he predicts a potential future event, which is the Earth's cremation. This kind of got me thinking, perhaps he could be talking about the second disaster, also known as the major catastrophe that we saw towards the end of Assassin's Creed 3. This is information that only someone with extensive knowledge would possess by now. That on top of him knowing all of this information about Bayek that nobody should know is all a bit of a mystery. While this might be a bit of a stretch, the way the gods describe the Son of Ra's eyes and his belief that he's similar to a god reinforces my suspicion that he might be a sage. Could this be a potential theory? Let me know your thoughts on that below. In Assassin's Creed Origins, most side quests are connected to the main story, and even when they're not, they still have interesting stories to them. The game's main focus is on hunting down each member of the Order of Ancients, and Assassin's Creed Origins follows the traditional Assassin's Creed formula of travelling to a new region, reaching out to a local contact, finding the oppressor of the region and assassinating them. However, Assassin's Creed Origins' approach to this is something that manages to keep the structure fresh and engaging throughout. I did like that in order to progress through the story, you are expected to level up by completing side quests. When you reach Sais, your contact Harkuf recommends that you help out the locals in hopes of finding out more about the Scarab. It's a clever idea. The game is attempting to recapture the feeling of Assassin's Creed 1's investigations, where side quests gave you clues and information about who your target was, where they resided and where guards were going to be. This approach gives you the feeling of planning out your attack, like preparing for the perfect heist, gathering all the information you need to execute it perfectly. Unity emulated this feeling with opportunities, and Origins does this with its leveling system. However, I will say that Unity did it better, as Origin forces you to do quests in any order, which honestly makes the game feel a bit less structured at times. When creating a large open world game such as Assassin's Creed Origins, the developers are faced with a massive decision. Ubisoft have taken the road of quests and side quests for Assassin's Creed Origins, and it's pretty much paid off. The quests are big multi-stage events that span the game's entire story and have some pretty amazing moments to them. Side quests are smaller affairs that can often last from 10 to 30 minutes, and some of them have various stages that must be completed before you can move on to the next part. Some are simple, while others are investigations where Bayek must examine a crime scene and gather information Batman Arkham style before he can piece together what happened. Origins borrowed its side quest approach in a way that's kind of similar to The Witcher 3, and to be fair, it could not have borrowed aspects from a better game. By introducing a quest system into the game, you can enjoy a wider range of activities and discover more while exploring. Additionally, the game accommodates somebody who comes across a quest item before actually receiving the quest. I remember during one side quest, I handed in an item before the quest giver had asked me for help. Bayek chuckled and said, "I believe this is what you were looking for. I found it earlier." I find this kind of attention to detail quite impressive. Another aspect of side quests that I felt were very impressive is that they were fully fleshed out with written stories and voice actors, and every action that you take in these quests have a tangible impact on the lives that you help. For instance, in one of the side quests in Siwa, you're tasked with helping out a blacksmith recover his lost tool, which had been taken by force from an army commander camped just outside the settlement. Completing this quest not only allowed the blacksmith to craft me new gear, but it also resulted in a noticeable decrease in the number of soldiers patrolling the area. While I did enjoy almost all the side quests in Origins, I felt that some of the scenes could have been presented in a more cinematic way to create a more immersive storytelling experience. Instead, the game uses a freeform camera during side quest dialogue that allows you to move the camera around. Although this is a minor complaint, I believe that a more cinematic presentation would have slightly increased the immersion of these side quests. Now that I've talked about the world of Origins, the story, Bayek and the side quests, I feel like it's time to discuss overall gameplay. The first thing I want to focus on is combat. The game takes a fresh approach to combat, addressing a common issue in previous games, which was the feeling of overpowering enemies. I like to think that the combat in Origins is more challenging, requiring precise timing for attacks rather than relying on easy parrying. Origins incorporates a standard light and heavy attack. Facing more than 3 opponents can quickly overwhelm you, prompting a swift escape. The game provides tools for recon, target marking, environmental advantage utilization, and stealthy bow attacks from a distance. It also introduces numerous RPG elements absent in previous games, such as leveled weapons, craftable gear, ability trees and additional features. With 3 branches for upgrades such as the bow, melee and tools, Assassin's Creed Origins lets you focus on what matters to you. Even with the game having a somewhat level cap, you won't exactly max out all the areas, encouraging specialization based on your preferences. While this might seem unusual for an assassin such as Bayek, it aligns with Bayek's story and journey. The weapon loot and your levels significantly impact progression since enemies don't exactly scale. The good news is XP is plentiful in Origins, even with minor deviations from the main story. While loot relies on chance, there is ample supply in crates throughout missions, which honestly eliminates the need to go shopping for gear or extensive treasure hunts if you keep leveling up and swapping in stronger weapons. There is a relatively straightforward vendor-based upgrade system that allows easy boosting of rare blades to stay relevant at high levels. Crafting upgrades for other gear is pretty simple too, and materials are almost always available. One thing I will say is that the level gating in Assassin's Creed Origins feels strict, and it prevents attempts at completing everything on the map at once. Although as I said, level gating is pretty strict, completing main and major side missions guides you quite quickly to the regions throughout the game, which honestly avoids those unnecessary backtracking or long empty travels. This approach to me is great as it allows you to explore points of interest as you pass them, making the experience feel less like a tedious chore. Another thing I should mention is mounted combat. I do like how smooth it feels in Origins and how effective it can be. It's relatively straightforward, and honestly, I wouldn't really change anything about it. Here's something for you to think about. Assassin's Creed Origins was a game that finally brought back the bow and arrow. Can you guess the last time we saw a bow and arrow in Assassin's Creed? Well, the answer is Assassin's Creed 3. That means for over 5 years, a simple bow and arrow was missing from the franchise, so it's great to see such a simple thing return. When it comes to stealth in Origins, I will say I find it to surpass that of Valhalla and Odyssey, even though it lacks social stealth. Let me explain. The stealth in Origins is the most beginner friendly in the series, largely due to the introduction of sleep darts that can be used quite often. These darts play a crucial role in stealth, and it's a pretty positive aspect that Origins incorporated them. The game also consolidated essential stealth features, which pretty much allowed you to easily crouch and silently dash between covers. The detection system in Origins is more flexible. It heavily relies on your proximity to the enemy who may spot you, yet even if you are detected, you can often take out the enemy before they even have a chance to alert others. In fact, it might have been a bit too overpowered, making detection feel quite rare in my opinion. When it comes to parkour in Origins, I will admit I found it to be quite fun. You have the freedom to travel to any terrain on foot and ascend nearly any surface, thanks to the improved parkour system that substitutes handholds with climbable surfaces. The thrill of exploration is consistently present for me in Origins, and when you scale large pyramid-like structures, it gives you this remarkable sense of freedom. One thing I did notice is that there's barely any bugs in the game. Now I know, that's not exactly anything to write home about, but you have to remember that this is Ubisoft, and bugs are always present in their games. But for some reason, I don't know if it's just me, but I felt like I ran into 0 technical issues throughout the entire game. This could be because I played Origins on PC, and I have relatively high specs. But whatever the case may be, it just felt seamless to me. Assassin's Creed Origins to me is a game that's an absolute blast. It's a game that in my opinion redesigned the series that it definitely needed. If you're searching for an RPG game to step into the shoes left vacant by The Witcher 3, Assassin's Creed Origins comes into life as the closest and most impressive contender so far. Origins gave me that excitement of exploration, a deep connection with various characters, the thrill of uncovering hidden treasures, and that nagging suspicion that I might have overlooked a quest or two upon arriving at a new region. If the series had left you feeling fatigued, Origins gives you that ideal chance to re-engage and savor the experience. I look forward to seeing what Assassin's Creed Codename Red has to offer, because if it's anything similar to Origins, which I've heard rumours that it might be, then I can see it being an incredible game. If you did enjoy this video, be sure to hit that subscribe button as it will help me out quite a lot. And with that said, I'll see you in the next one.